Okay, I have like a half an hour, 37 minutes max. I should stop and air up my left front tire. Ugh, I worry it's just going to keep deflating every time. I'm going to have to get it replaced. Ugh. Last time we talked about these Lake Powell books. I've even assembled more Lake Powell books from other shelves. I brought them over here because I'm going to reorganize this section. So it's a little messy. I already took these out, which I'm going to look at. So it's crazy to have a giant section of books about Glen Canyon and Lake Powell. But again, my book on that topic that was unpublished once around was like my writing school from 2000 to 2005. It's like really taught me a lot. No, from, when was it from? 2002 to, 2007 maybe. I worked on it for a long time in many different phases and for a long time intently. Like the whole time I was in Guatemala, I was working on that book. It taught me to really like polish and to add research and to, kind of make it have a point. It taught me about research. It just taught me about everything, really. I remember realizing like, oh, I need to pay attention to dialogue. I learned, Lake Powell was significant in two different sections of my life. One, when I was living on it, circumnavigating it for 6.5 months in a canoe. There's the oar painted by my daughter below. All right, I know I repeat myself in this channel sometime. If you watch all the videos, it must be very redundant at times. I'm sorry. But it'd be weird for everyone to just assume basic information, and stories are connected to other stories, so whatever. Antelope Canyon, also part of Lake Powell. Lake Powell floods, part of Antelope Canyon. The largest flash flood death in history at that point happened in that canyon. A guided tour group that argued with their Navajo guide, "We don't care if it's stormy, we want to go down. We paid for this. Come on, you have to let us go down." Dead. Everyone dead. Except the guide who somehow kicked back and floated on his back and got put back up at the top. What if he just never went down and just made up this awesome story about surfing the floodwater? He was like, "You dumb tourists can go down. I'm not going back down. It's going to flood and kill everybody." No, I think it's pretty documented. Like he was found washed up all over the rim. But I have talked to all the rangers that were there doing the recovery that day. Pat and Bob became like friends of mine when I was in the lake. They would always be like, "The canoe boy." And they would tell me all about it. They showed me a photo album of it. Finding the bodies in the flooded mud. One body had a key wrapped around the base of its spine, a brass key, his spine. Sometimes they didn't find a body, but they just find like a scalp. Oh, horrifying. Yeah, you do not want to die in a flash flood in a narrow canyon. It's all the debris of the flood and getting bashed from wall to wall. But canoeing up Antelope Canyon was really cool. And then later on, I went back with a guided tour, it was like a small tour group, and went down. It was awesome. It's really beautiful. Music videos get filmed there. Britney Spears filmed a video there. It just looks like no place on earth. It's crazy. As Edward Abbey said, yeah, but the Taj Mahal would look beautiful half covered in water too. But I mean, the water is part of the beauty. That blue water with the red rock and the blue sky is just incredible. I can't believe the experience I had for 6.5 months. It made me the weirdo I am today, canoeing around the circumference of that insane thing. It was like, whoa. In a way, you could think of it as land art. It's destructive land art. But if you watch that second Andy Goldsworthy documentary, he gets pretty destructive. He's like, "I don't think you can actually do anything unnatural," and he's all driving around with a bulldozer. But, the way the West is configured, it is a pretty precious and essential resource. But Mead could do the same thing. Mead could hold that water. Neither Mead nor Powell have been full forever, and may never be fully full again. So, like, fill Mead first is a really good movement. And, I think eventually decommissioning Glen Canyon Dam would be pretty awesome. But society has really changed some modes on it. I feel like the left doesn't fight for such things as much anymore, and it's just not as unreasonable of an idea. Powell is silting up so fast. There's so much silt in Lake Powell, hundreds of feet. And they're like, what do we do with it? Could we sell it to farms in Nevada to put on things and dredge it, make it like an industry? But the silt is going to decommission the dam and make Lake Powell completely fill up. I mean, there was an ancient lake there before. This is in Utah and Arizona. And that ancient lake was caused by volcanic lava flowing into the canyon, and eventually it wore away. Dams do not last forever. Nothing lasts forever. Geology is geography is always changing. Like every pond eventually becomes a meadow when it fills in. Amazing. Lake Powell Glen Canyon to me is a crazy subject because it's a double lost world in my life. Like, I really felt the tragedy of Lake Powell when I circumnavigated the whole circumference. You really do see that a lot was flooded and lost and so on. It is a beautiful, amazing place, and no regrets about that trip. And I see the arguments for accessibility and stuff. Like, I mean, I hung out on a houseboat with a guy who's in a wheelchair, and he was like, I'm so glad I can see this place. But, you know, it's a really poor way of holding water. The evaporation rate is super high, and that water goes up into clouds that generally end up over the Midwest. So there's that. And like, it isn't actually environmentally sound to cover an entire place in water. Like, so many animals died, etc. I've heard crazy stories of animals like escaping up onto smaller and smaller islands before dying, swimming at boats. 2 towns are underwater, Height and White City at the north end. I mean, now they're not anymore, but that's the thing. So then Lake Powell was there forever, and now Lake Powell is more than half empty, I think. I was trying to check the numbers the other day, but couldn't really find as clear of a thing as I wanted to find. Just, you know, a spare moment at work. But it's way low. Most of the marinas are closed. I have a screenshot that shows all the closed ones in red and all the open ones in green, and it's mostly red. It's crazy. And even the ones that are open are like, see the conditions. You might have to use an alternate ramp. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that trip changed my life. I mean, my campsites were amazing. Look at that. Sleeping on a rock in my tent. Kind of tilty, but oh well. Cooking up here with this wild view. And that's a huge area, too. You barely get a sense of it. And there's my canoe way down there. Oh, yeah. All started with this. Anyway, so then Lake Powell became this double lost world because it went away. So now there's areas that are like, wow. This was Glen Canyon, and then it was Lake Powell, and Glen Canyon was buried beneath it all. And now it's kind of an altered Glen Canyon, and Lake Powell is gone, and there's houseboat graffiti carved way up above your heads, above the waterline. Now that's historic. And I remember thinking, someday this is going to be historic. I felt like I was in tune with nature, etc. out there. I was loving where I got there. Well, there was a long time when I think I had Giardia. That time was not so good. One night I dreamed that my canoe was a little folded paper boat, and I was being tossed about in the waves. And I knew that it would sink, and I just resigned myself to it, and I was okay, and I just was sad. Great dream, dude. You're not doing well. No, I definitely had Giardia from drinking that water. The water is so silty, it broke all my filters right away. And so I only had them for a short while, and I was like, I guess I have to drink this. Damn. Yeah, I mean, that lake covered so many uranium mines from the 1950s and 60s uranium boom. So many. Like 10,000. That water is probably toxic in so many ways, and it has flow from the San Juan, Colorado, Escalante, and Dirty Devil rivers, not to mention just that whole giant watershed. The Colorado River watershed is huge. The watershed, of course, being, you know, the whole area that flows into a river. If the water falls on the ground in a watershed, it flows down to the river. And the Colorado's is pretty big in the desert. I remember finding all sorts of like old boards and logs from old cabins with nail holes and notches and things that would wash down. Whole telephone poles sometimes. Had some crazy bonfires with driftwood from all over the Desert West. And one, when my friend Ray was joining me on the lake in Navajo Canyon, we made a bonfire that was like, it was not leave no trace. It was, to borrow a friend's phrase, trace maxing. We had this giant bonfire. We just kept throwing logs into it for hours until it was so big it almost filled this empty end of this canyon. And the end of the canyon had like 20 feet, probably more, of just solid driftwood logs going all the way down to the ground. And we were up on a ledge just a little bit above it that would have been underwater maybe at the highest levels. No, because the water was pretty high when we were on it. So, but anyway, it was a way out there area. And we had such a giant fire. Like our fire ring looked like a little bullseye in the middle of the center of it. And all the birds were waking up and chirping and so on. That's not how you should camp. That's some insane camping. We regretted that fire. We talked about it after. We were like, that's too big. You shouldn't have a campfire that big. But also, whoa. I mean, I've never seen a college bonfire at the top of this thing. But in general, I was a very, meek little camper, cleaning up after myself everywhere where I went. So, okay, let's look at some books connected to Lake Powell Glen Canyon. It only took me 10 minutes to get here. Okay, I love like a giant brick of a book on a topic. That's so awesome. But Lee's Ferry, that's literally where some people crossed a river. Look at this giant book on that subject. How could you fill a whole book with that? But of course you can. 542. History is so cool because it's like comprised of so many interesting literary experiments. Let's just look at this place. This to me is like kind of avant-garde in a way. I mean, think about it. You'd read that book reviewed if it was somebody just talking about their house. In fact, that book here, a graphic novel, is like that. It's just about a corner of someone's house. But it's fictionalized, so literary. Here we have a similar project. Just one little place. And I bet he goes way back. I know because I've read from this book. I've read a lot of selections from it when I was researching these very... Oh, it's got pictures too. That's cool. Some, but not too many. You can't say it's just all pictures. That's a lot. Yeah, but Lee's Ferry is a very interesting crossing. You know, my ancestors crossed there in the 1870s and journaled about it and were documented about it by later family historians. My great-great-great-grandparents, David and Betsy Clough, spelled C-L-U-F-F, and my great-great-grandfather, their son, Moses Clough, who later was a co-founder of the city of Pima, Arizona. Actually, so were David and Betsy Clough. But they wanted to do one last act of colonization. Like, I think they explicitly called it that, but they thought they were colonizing for the Mormon church, and I guess they were. You know, they might have thought about America a bit, but like their real country was Deseret. But it's kind of funny because when my ancestors went to Arizona finally, which is then where like my family tree picked up from, and I've been to their graves, it's pretty interesting. They're buried outside of Thatcher, Arizona. They're a lot of people's ancestors, so they have fancy graves because polygamy. But also they had a big family and they were known as Mother and Father Clough. But David and Betsy Clough were like completely blind when they crossed at Lee's Ferry in the 1870s during a season of traveling the old Mormon Road, which is now Highway 84 in Utah. But Lee's Ferry, wow, what a spot. It's special. It's downstream of Glen Canyon, and it divides, I think, Glen Canyon from the Grand Canyon, or Marble Canyon does, but it's like around there. And I think of Lee's Ferry as the southernmost terminus of Glen Canyon because there's the dam, but then there are a few more miles, and then Lee's Ferry is downstream. But it's a really interesting place. For a long time, John D. Lee lived there, and he was, you know, a participant in, and probably a bad guy on many levels, but also a scapegoat for the Mountain Meadows Massacre, in which a Baptist Methodist wagon train, the Fancher Baker train, was brutally slaughtered by a bunch of Mormons, some of them disguised as Native Americans. They tried to blame it on the Paiutes, and it was totally them. There was an excavation done when Gordon B. Hinckley was the Mormon president/prophet to them. And they started to find no tomahawk wounds, no tomahawk parts, nothing like that, only bullets. That's it. Bullet damage. And then Gordon B. Hinckley shut it down. Actually, we're not going to allow this inspection of this historic church site. I mean, Brigham Young had no regrets about it. He viewed the sites from a stagecoach where wolves had eaten all the bodies, and he was all, that monument over there should say, vengeance is mine, and I have taken a little. And he kept all the horses and expensive things that were taken from the people. The kids were taken and raised as Mormon. Read Sally Denton's book, American Massacre. That's what it's called. American Massacre. Very good. Oh, hey, look. It's coming up. Maybe I'll just look at it right now. Yeah, this is a great book. So Lee's Ferry, definitely connected with that. Lee was sent out there in exile, and his wife kept a really detailed journal about how lonely it all was and weird living with this guy. It'd probably be a great, like, strange series, you know, this zealous guy, but who's getting scapegoated by the church he loves, and like, got to pin it on somebody. In Sally Denton's book, she says he is a rapist too during the act, but I feel like that's maybe only connected to one or two pieces of evidence because I didn't see that anywhere else. Though it's a hard thing to study because sometimes some of the books on it have a really pro-Mormon bias, and even really fair books written by Mormons like Pearl S. Baker's The Mountain Meadows Massacre, which is often used to be the first book anyone read on that topic. I think it's Pearl Baker, yeah. You can tell that they're really trying to play up how bad this wagon train was that was coming through. They did all this stuff, and they poisoned the wells, and blah, blah, blah. And kind of after the fact, rationale, I think. But yeah, I guess Under the Banner of Heaven. I stopped watching that, but I should finish watching that movie. I read the book, the miniseries with Andrew Garfield. I think it dramatizes some of this, but I don't think I'd gotten that far yet. I think there's another show that does as well. One of my coworkers just happened to know a bunch about it, and from some dramatized Mormon show. It is an interesting history, a wild bunch, you know. I swear, when I was an undergrad in college, there were like 2 or 3 years when I had first really gotten away from it that I was so embarrassed of that whole history, and I never talked about it to anybody. Like, I literally took a class with Sally Denton as the teacher, and it would have been very relevant to bring up my past history at points, but I was like, I would blush every time I would think about talking about it. Like, how was I so duped? It really, it was the research into my Lake Powell book that really was a big leading away for me from the religion of my youth. I was just like reading all these primary documents and books written by non-Mormons about this Utah and Western history, and it was like an Arizona history, and it was like, I suppose suddenly you could say I felt like a cat sitting on a windowsill with my paws before me, the world outside on one side, and the contained hemisphere that I knew on the other. I could see that hemisphere shrinking. I stepped out. But reading all these books was a real eye-opening awakening for me. I feel like my whole life has just been constant unfolding, becoming. I'm like, why does this take so long? And eventually I'll be a being of pure light in the 50th dead world. That's the goal, anyway. Something for the vision board. But this is a very interesting story, and this is now, I would say, the book to get on the subject. If you're only going to read one book about the Mountain Meadows Massacre, this is the one right here. And if you want to read a crazy American Western story that is true to the best of Sally Denton's ability, because you just don't know. You have so many conflicting accounts of this thing. But she presents it all very fairly. And she does my favorite method of doing footnotes. No interruption to the text. Just list the page number in the back and have the line of dialogue that it is connected to and whatever commentary she has. It's so good. Lean. She's great. She is an original. I feel like the world doesn't celebrate Sally Denton and her writing enough. I heard there was going to be an FX show of her book, The Money and the Power, about Las Vegas history, featuring mafia, the mafia and Mormons. So yeah, you could say this isn't exactly Lake Powell history or Glen Canyon history, but it's so connected to it. It's so overlapping. John D. Lee was at Lee's Ferry at the end of Glen Canyon for so much of his life. So yeah. Ditto Lee's Ferry. In fact, that's a good starting point because that is the southern terminus of Glen Canyon. Glen Canyon was named by John Wesley Powell for its lovely shady glens and alcoves, these little wonderful canyon rooms with twisting, strange walls, likes of which you've never seen anywhere else. I mean, it's just insane. Like going inside Red Rock Stones, so great. I mean, you were in the earth. The Colorado Plateau is a giant shelf of rock that covers so much of northwest New Mexico, southern Utah, northern Arizona. And it is just incredible. Maybe a little bit of Colorado. When I was working at this summer camp and through this summer, I was right on the edge of the Colorado Plateau. I could literally see the nearest red rock, like as I turned off to this camp, and partly from this camp. And it was just right there. I'm like, that's the edge of it. This giant slab of ancient ocean floor. It's just sitting here now, and it's all cut and cracked and amazing. Like, going wild in the canyons is like nothing else. Like, you really... Whoa. Even on a lake's not a reservoir, it's not going to hide it. That's some temporary thing. That land is like, we've had reservoirs here before a bunch of times whenever there's a volcano. It's us that's missing out. All these beautiful things of Glen Canyon that are celebrated. But like I said, I'm also an enjoyer of what is. And like, you really like, if there's a reservoir there, like, you're not evil or wrong to go take your family out on a boat on it. Have a good time, Like, just be cool. Respectful. I don't like the name Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. That's like a permission for people to be idiots. There's a natural culling process, though. There's this incredible guy named Carl Frisch. He was a ranger on the lake who I met at the time, but then I later got to know him because he worked at this bike shop in Socorro, New Mexico, where my friend went through when she was biking across the country. And around that same time, I interviewed him and about his dissertation, which was about all the deaths that had ever happened in Glen Canyon. And I got to see his whole dissertation and read parts of it and photocopy parts of it. There was a guy on a solo canoe trip who died on Lake Powell. And they found, I don't think they ever found his body, but they found a book he'd been reading drifting down through the water, and a bunch of his other objects. They were all cataloged in his report. Lake Powell's wild. The Coast Guard classifies it as an inland ocean. Even now, I'm sure in its atrophied form, it's pretty wild, but I was literally all over the northern half of it recently. There was no lake there, and it was crazy. Working for this Cottonwood Gulch summer camp, we were driving all through that area, and people needed to stop for a bathroom break, and they stopped at just what was to them a random campground. But it was the Dirty Devil campground where I both started and 6 months later ended my canoe trip. And it was crazy, and suddenly I was there, but the lake wasn't there anymore. It was completely gone. And I had been to parts of the northern lake before, like in the early 2000s, back when the lake was gone. Like that was around Hype Marina, though. This was kind of in the same area, but it was really gone now. It wasn't like there used to be a lake here anymore. It was like, here's some dry, dusty sandstone, beautiful desert. And where's the river? Oh, it's beyond some ridge way down there. You can't even see it. I found the very rock promontory where I once cast off and returned to at slightly different water levels, with 6.5 months between the times. But it was just dry and hard to pick out from the other rocks. I bought this book when I was on that trip around Lake Powell at Hype Marina, which is now gone. It's a ghost town, basically. There's nothing there. I was just there recently. Maybe there's a gas station somewhere around there or something, but I didn't see it. Toward the end of my trip, I really fell in with the Hype Marina crowd, and they were a wild bunch of desert weirdos, all living out in trailers in the desert and having parties out in random spots, like this spot called Echo, where the parties always dissolved into chaos and Dionysian frenzy. I don't know, so I'm told. It was crazy. When I was on that trip, my friend Nathan, who is one of my good buddies from Alaska, Nathan Birchfield, well, now he changed his name to Nathan Valentine. That is a family name of his, interestingly. Nathan surprised me by just coming and getting a job at Hype Marina. And so when I pulled up to Hype Marina in my canoe, all bearded and tan and sunglasses wearing, he was like, "Mike!" And I was like, "What? What?" It was like a weird dream. And then my friend from Alaska comes running down this hill with his hair slightly longer than when I knew him. And he's wearing a Hype Marina collared shirt with the name emblazoned on it. I'm like, "Dude, you're freaking me out. This is crazy." But anyway, so while he was working at the marina, I loitered there for a bit, and I bought a stack of books. I realized I don't need to buy more stove fuel because I'm going to there'll be plenty of driftwood at on the northern part of the lake. I'll just have little fires. And I remember one I had on this like mud promontory out right next to this perfect like white sandstone pyramid. And it was just all illuminated and so eerie. Fish jumping everywhere. Oh, it was crazy. Anyway. A fire would light up a dark canyon was just something so interesting, even a small fire. And animals love the fire too. More than once, a coyote would come and sit by my fire and just hang out with me because it was cold out. And that happened with a moose in Alaska too. And many times, especially in Arizona later on with kangaroo rats. Animals get cold too. So I reckoned then that I didn't really need to buy more food because I still had rice when I was at this marina. And so I bought a stack of books. Haha. You'll see a few of those. I bought this. I bought Beyond the 100th Meridian about John Wesley Powell. Yeah. That might have been it. I might have bought that one then too. I'll save these two for later. I got a lot to say about them. Well, this one in particular. This is a great book. I read this like 3 times. You study water in the West, you need to read this. If you care about the Colorado River, definitely read this. John Wesley Powell, I mean, he and his expedition are so connected to everything. The USGS, they founded it. Naming of major Western features, like, did he name the Grand Canyon? He named a lot of things around there. I don't think he named the Grand Canyon. He named Bright Angel Falls, though, around there. And he named the Dirty Devil that flows into Lake Powell and Glen Canyon. Well, now just Glen Canyon. Just add those to this pile. Anyway, I bought this. This is a collection of early accounts of visits to Rainbow Bridge. And this is a great book. I really recommend it. But if you're only going to get one Rainbow Bridge book, this is the one. This is incredible. Oh, I love this book so much. Why have I read this book like 5 times? I love this book. Navajo Mountain and Rainbow Bridge Religion by Carl Lickert. This is such a beautiful, amazing, incredible book. I just love it. It's so when they were making Lake Powell, the local indigenous people there, the Navajo, were like, the Dene, as they called themselves, were like, hey, this is like a really old and sacred spot to us. Navajo Mountain is the, shield we hid behind when Kit Carson came, led by the violent Navajo warrior chief. I don't know if he was a chief, but he was definitely a leader, Huskanini, who has a lost silver mine around Monument Valley that people have tried to find forever. It's now generally called the Merrick Mitchell Silver Mine. But you've seen Monument Valley if you've seen Back to the Future 3 or many iconic Westerns. Forrest Gump, he runs there. In fact, that hill is now called Forrest Gump Hill. But Navajo Mountain is incredible. If you've seen Planet of the Apes, you've seen it in the background of a million shots. It looks like a pregnant stomach. It's a laccolith. Weirdly, there's not a picture of it in here. That's funny. There were pictures, though. I mean, there are. Here either. Anyway, Navajo Mountain's incredible. Picture like a dome, basically. A laccolith is a bubble of earth pushed up by a bubble of lava that never erupts into a volcano. Incredible. And it's perfectly round. The Navajo there call it Natsizan, or head of earth. There's a village at the base of it that my friend and I just happened to discover. I mean, for ourselves when we were running out of water and dying. It was... So we had some maps we'd printed out at Dangling Rope Marina, which was then a marina on Lake Powell. My friend had joined me for the middle third of my trip, and we went to go climb Navajo Mountain, just walk all the way to it. We later found out you needed to get permits and things, but we were just kind of out there doing whatever. I'm sorry. We did meet a lot of Navajo people, though, and none of them talked to us about permits either. We were like, is it okay? Everyone was like, yeah, go climb it. Stayed with this incredible family that we met. We met their son, Terry, and he was super cool. And he took us back and introduced me and Ray to his mom and dad, and it was great. I've written about that experience. Had like mutton backbone hominy stew and watermelon, and like just had a great time hanging out with these cool people. We stayed in a trailer, like a little like camper next door, exchanged books with Terry. It was great. But when we found that town, we were like in a bad way. We were trying to walk to Navajo Mountain, and you're just like walking on these plateaus out in the middle of nowhere. And you're like on this high hidden world that you can't see from the lake at all. And in fact, when we were later in Natsizan and we told people we were canoeing around Lake Powell, people were like, one woman said, "What lake?" Like, it's a world removed. And anyway, we were out in the desert, and it was a wild place. I mean, we'd find like a hogan, like a 100-year-old Navajo structure in disrepair with cream of wheat boxes wallpapering the inside of it, really old ones. Or little wiki-ups just made of like bent sticks on the side of the road that maybe you could put a cloak over and get some shelter in. Things that like John Wesley Powell has drawings of in his book. It was just a really unchanged, amazing land up there with crazy, freakish geography, just occasional sandstone knobs, like drops out of a factory spout or something, of molten this or that. I mean, it's just the craziest. It boggles the mind, and the piece is so wild. One night we camped on a sandstone slab on our walk over to the mountain, with the mountain getting closer and closer, and like you pass like a smaller summit here or there, like Navajo Begay, the second highest point around there. And one morning we woke up. Squirrel's making noises at me. What's up? What's up, kitty? You need petted or more treats or something? Anyway, a bull with a bunch of cows woke us up, and we were like, what? Oh no, they were like right next to us. I'm like, what are we going to do? There was only one tree. It would have offered very little and only brief protection if we'd made our way over to it. We just kind of sat there, and eventually the bull got bored and went away. But that was a little tense. I think we did make noise and kind of like make ourselves sonically unpleasant. But what I love this book most for is it reprints. I mean, it collects all this lore connected to the mountain. Some of it's kind of funny. Like, I saw a little pink and black lizard guy. I don't know who that was. But it's like, that sounds like a Gila monster. Some of it's just so cool. And it's like the mythology of a place. And if you know this area, it's even cooler. Like, so because Navajo Mountain is just this round bubble in an area of, erosive sandstone all around, canyons fray out from all around it like the corona of, the sun. And it's just beautiful. There's literally canyons spoking out of it on every side. It's a special, amazing, interesting, truly still wild place. In fact, Natsizan, the little town at the base of it, was for a really long time the most isolated city in the United States. Not counting like some islands or something in some territory probably, but like the continental United States. I mean, it is remote. We were shocked because we had just inaccurate Xerox maps to find a town there. And I think it's because the town was labeled Navajo Mountain on the maps, and so was the mountain. But we found this like road grader, and we were just sitting on it and reading a copy of the Navajo Times that were in it. And we were like, do we walk all the way back? We're running out of water. None of these springs on the map have been there. They've all been dry. We're in trouble. We'd find these gross bottles of water near the side of the road once in a while, but they all smelled like half vodka or vomit or something. We were like, I don't want to. These are like emergency things that people left there like months ago, maybe. So we knew like we can always drink that swill. But still, we were like really rationing the water that we had. And when we heard a rooster crowing and dogs barking sitting on that grader, we freaked out. We ran to this town and we asked to use the phone at the school. Oh, no, to use the mailbox at the school. And that's when we met Terry. And then he took us to meet his family. And he also took us all around on like dirt roads and showed us cool ruins way out in the desert. People don't like to call them ruins now around there. And that's like out of favor, but I mean, no one's lived in them for a really long time. But like ancestral Puebloan structures and kivas, and it was incredible. But I don't know that I love the repetitious poetry that's in here. Like it has affected me so powerfully. Like name any other poet, and that poem hasn't affected me as much as the poems in here. There's some in particular. Let me just read part of one. When the long walk happened and all the Navajo people in the west were rounded up by Kit Carson and his goons and taken to Bosque Redondo near Santa Rosa and kept there in basically an outdoor internment camp. Here's something crazy that my friend Stephen Usherman, my old friend, a prolific author, pointed out that the symbol of the swastika was carved all around Bosque Redondo because it was the whirling log symbol that was later, manipulated and distorted, turned into something else by the Nazis. But so they would carve it around there, and you can find carvings of, Navajo Dene swastikas out there and around there. It was a very popular image for a long time. I mean, there was the Swastika Mining Company. I just recently did a live event at what had been the old Swastika Saloon and is now the Painted Lady. Albuquerque's first bar is called The Bucket of Blood. Was called. I've always thought it'd be interesting to do like a pop-up redo. But anyway, I got this book from a free pile at Dangling Rope Marina. It was like a shelf for employees there. That's a marina that's now long gone. And even then it was one of the most inaccessible. It was the only one without a road that went to it. Named after a rotten rope found on a wall back in one of those canyons. And home of like one of the biggest solar farms anywhere. They had a staff of like a few people, and I stayed with them for a couple of weeks, and it was amazing. Betty, Jason, Steve, I still remember these people. They were so cool. It was this feisty old lady that had gone to Lake Powell on a trip with her son in the 70s, and as they drove away, he was all, "Why are we leaving?" She's like, "You're right, let's get a job here. It's amazing." Jason was a guy who had been a punk rocker in Seattle, and he read Edward Abbey and was like, I gotta go to the freaking Southwest and see this stuff. This sounds incredible. I mean, the desert is a conduit to big things, to like major transformation. It's a special sort of nature. All nature is beautiful and amazing. And so, as Rick Bass points out, like protect the lush stuff too. But the desert is special. There's a reason all the mystics and weirdos and stuff end up there. Why the stylites sit on their poles. I lost my place. So during the long walk, though, a band of Navajos did escape. A pretty big one. And they escaped into the crazy canyons around Navajo Mountain. Just as Butch Cassidy and his gang would later escape into the very nearby canyons of Robber's Roost. Off of the Dirty Double River up there, in that area. They effectively escaped. If anybody went up there, Hoskanini was said to have killed them. Like, that was his policy. Like, we're going to be protected by allowing no one to know about us. We're going to be completely isolated here. And so there's all these, they literally, in this lore, the way it's depicted poetically is that the mountain is like a shield that was held up to protect them. And the trees were the arrows of their enemies that pierced the shield, but not them. Your shield you will place before me for protection. Sunwise you will carry it around me. You will place it in front of me for protection. So there's this like very specific geographic historic root for all this, but it's also just really poetic and beautiful, and word phrases of protection, etc., are good for anybody, you know. These poems do so beautifully is repeat. Just, I mean, this to me, they show the power of repetition. I really love the mode of them. Beyond this, hold back the danger for me. So then I will overcome danger. It will be smaller than I am. Beyond it, danger will pass by me. Beyond it, danger has passed by me. Behind it, I will survive. I have survived here. All of us have survived. All of us have survived as a whole. All of us have survived. All of us have survived as a whole. We survived. We survived. We have survived. We have survived. I have survived. I have survived. I have survived for you. I have survived for you. For many more years. For many more years. I've been so moved by these words before. You know, you read them in the right head state, read them in the context of this book, and a love for this place. Oh yeah, and Rainbow Bridge is incredible. Rainbow Bridge, what is that? It's so huge. I mean, I've seen a ton of arches, and many of them are huge and just awe-inspiring and so on. But Rainbow Bridge is the big playa. You could fit a Statue of Liberty underneath it. I mean, it's giant. And remember, the Statue of Liberty's little finger is 13 feet long. This is giant. It's so huge. No, you can't walk on it like in Kentucky's National Bridges National Park, Natural Bridges National Park, which is very cool. But it's good because I went to Kentucky's Natural Bridges National Park where they do have sandstone arches, though they're all covered in greenery. And you can walk over the tops of them. But like, for instance, on the top of their largest arch, someone has carved Pantera. And come on, that's not cool. It's good to respect these sacred sites. You know, this is amazing. The difference between an arch and a bridge is that a bridge still stands over the source that carved it. So there's still water that flows beneath this thing. It's beautiful. It's awe-inspiring. I'm kind of glad it's harder to get to now. You know, I saw a lot of people being real jaded around it and just stopping there for the bathrooms, clogging up Forbidden Canyon. I almost died being swamped by boats in there many times. Paddling for my life. My friend Ray was with me at the time. Then we made the stupid decision to camp at the back of it when we could have totally been killed in a flash flood. Like, we were right in a floodplain, but we were so tired and there was nowhere else we could find. So thank you, all that is, for not killing me. Because we totally deserved to die. So here's a funny thing. Oh, I gotta go. But when I come back, and consider this a spoiler for the sort of high-quality content people get around here, I'll tell the story of how I got a copy of the Lake Powell Boater's Guide and the Boater's Guide to Lake Powell in the same day. It's a pretty good story, actually. Me and a random group of people stuck in a canyon during a windstorm when their boat had been just sunk or disappeared. No, it was disappeared because we later found it. And a kayaker who happened to stop. And it was Jack, Jill, and what was that guy's name? And Jack was famous. He was a famous photographer. There's a book about him climbing the highest trees in the world, called The Tree Climbers, I think. He was a photographer for Hooked on the Outdoors magazine at the time. And did a photo shoot with me. Hilarious. He's all, canoe around. He's all, stop smiling. Wait, I gotta go. I gotta pick my daughter up, and I might have to stop and put air in my front tire. I can't afford car problems right now, and they're piling up. Oh, gosh. All right. If anyone's rich out there, save me. I'll send you a PayPal. That should be like de facto in all my videos. You just assume that. Mike could use some help. But soon I'm going to change my life. I'm going to get this alternative licensure thing. I just got a few months of financial difficulty perhaps before that. I'll get a teaching job ASAP. And I'll be making the big little money. Teacher's wages, which to me right now is a lot. Okay, I gotta go. So, sorry all these books are about one place on the map, Glen Canyon and Lake Powell. And there's a lot of them. I realize this. The numbers on this channel just stop dead after I post that first Lake Powell one. Glen Canyon. Maybe I need to just... I've been tagging them and stuff. I thought people were obsessed on this topic. Maybe that's another day. But when you're actually in those areas, it still seems like there's a pretty big culture that's into the Colorado Plateau and experiencing it, and books about it, and Edward Abbey and all those folk. Everett Ruiz. I mean, in the town of Escalante, there's a burger place that's really good called Nemo's, named after him. And there's a gear company named after him. And then there's like the houseboating culture of Lake Powell. That's a whole thing. You should see the merch at these gift shops. It's out of control. Someone gave me a shirt once that said, no, they didn't give us, no, I had a different shirt. It just said Pal Rules. Haha. That someone gave me. But I saw a shirt that said Lake Powell Alcoholics Anonymous chapter. And that was sold at the marinas. Kind of encouraging a culture of that at the time. Aramark runs those marinas. It also runs a lot of prisons. And the school lunch program for America, pretty much. Okay, I gotta go. Oh yeah, I have to go right there, but I do need to stop and get air. Oh gosh, this went too long. Everybody, this is your fault. You made me do this. What? I'm addicted to the likes. It's not healthy. Okay, I gotta go. Bye. Some squirrel, some praise.